So, good morning, folks. Hope we're all doing well. You're all very welcome to this morning's webinar. We're just going to leave it 2 or 3 minutes just to allow everyone to come into the space and join us for this morning's webinar. We do appreciate everyone taking the time out to be with us this morning. I see people are still joining, still coming in there on this wonderful morning. Weather is good. Robert, good to see you. Robert has joined us there. We do
Thanks,
like to
Cathal.
no problem, Robert. Good to see you. We like to do a little weather update just for people in the morning. We're obviously obsessed with the weather, being Irish and all that. So weather is nice here where I am in Dublin. So you might just pop a good morning. Let us know what the weather is like, whatever part of Ireland you're in, or anywhere in the world. Just to let me know you can hear me okay. So just pop a good morning and a weather update into the chat, just so myself and Robert know that you can hear us okay, that you're with us. And here we go for the weather updates, Robert. Hope you're ready. Right, it's dull and windy in Armagh. Sunny in Swords. Beautiful in Kildare. Morning, Teresa. Cork is a lovely day, of course. It's always good in Cork, isn't it, Robert? The weather is always good in the real capital city.
Yes, as insurers, we pay close attention, Cathal, so we're writing all of this down.
Absolutely. Well, of course, yeah, this is right down your street. We're gathering intel, Robert.
Yep.
That's what we're actually doing. We're gathering intel here as we're doing this. Blue skies in Kilkenny, sunny in D2. I never know where the D numbers are: D1, D2, D3, D4. I never fully understand where the D numbers are. I'll have to learn that.
Odds and evens, at least.
Odds and evens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Odds is the north side, right?
That's it. Yep.
But even
Coming back to you.
coming back. It's a sunny afternoon in India. Fantastic. Billy, good morning. Nice and cloudy in Wexford. Okay. Okay, that's enough for the weather updates. You can all hear me okay. That's good to know. Thanks for letting us know there. And we gathered in great intel for Allianz. What we didn't know when we were doing that is we were gathering in great intel for Allianz in terms of the business they have. So look, good morning everyone. Good that you can join us. We're very excited about this morning's webinar, all around the journey to becoming a best workplace, right? So for organizations that are on the call that are perhaps new to the Great Place to Work program or thinking about it, we believe we have a really good framework to measure culture, and then our framework is used then to improve the work culture, right? And Robert from Allianz has really kindly agreed to come on and to share their journey that they've been on, how they measure, but more importantly, how they improve their culture off the back of the survey tool. So we really appreciate that. We had a great event in Galway yesterday, actually, just to say we were in Genesis in Galway. Genesis are sponsors of the Connacht rugby team, great organisation. I've been working on their culture now for a number of years. A number of the Connacht rugby team joined us as well, actually, which was interesting because we were talking about how to build a culture, build a great culture, and how that impacts on your performance. We also had Lotus Works, another client of ours, sharing their journey, their story. And from the hospitality industry, we had the Galway Bay Hotel sharing their story as well. So we really good insight share. Yesterday, we enjoyed it. Just for everyone, we really want to hear your questions. We really want to hear your thoughts. All right, so please use the Q&A function to pop in your questions, right? And myself and Robert then will happily take those questions then towards the end of Robert's presentation. So we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your comments. So please pop your questions into the Q&A. Just on the next slide there, if that's okay. So best workplaces for women, we have a really comprehensive report there. And we're going to pop the link into the chat as well, but really encourage you to download that report that we produced, which has, lots of great stories and practices and examples of how you can build a great workplace for females and for males, right? So there's really good takeaway practices there around development, career development, work-life balance, how we think about all of that, all right? So make sure you download that report and share it with your team as well. Thank you. Great Place to Work Masterclass. It's on the 7th of May, and there's still tickets available. You get a sense of some of the brands that are joining us on that day. Again, all sharing insights from their work culture, all sharing best practices that they have to build a great culture. And that's on May the 7th, Masterclass. We'd really love if you can join us for that morning. We have a great lineup of speakers there that you can see on your screen. Again, we'll pop the links in the chat so you can see it there. Thank you. And then we've lots of reading for you, lots of material, lots of bedtime reading, right? So Best Workplaces magazine, again, full of insights, full of great content, full of great topics, great takeaways to inspire you in terms of your own work culture journey that you're on. So please feel free to download it there using the QR code or as well, just use the link that'll be popped into the chat as well. So it's full of best workplace examples there. And we'll have a couple of polls, I think, before I hand over to you, Robert, if that's all right. So we might run the first poll here now. So Great Place to Work culture and action plan. Do you believe your workplace is a great place to work culture? We have 2 questions there. So the first question, do you believe your workplace has a great place to work culture? And the second is, does your organization have a clear strategy for improving your workplace culture? So remember, there's no such thing as a perfect workplace. If we are a great workplace, that's great. But then do we have a plan around improvement? Do we use a framework around improvement? Are we focused in on the listening and the actions? Okay. So thank you for getting involved there, right? So we have around 79, 80% of people believing that they have a great place to work, which is fantastic. And then numbers are more split, I would say, 50-50 around, does your organization have a clear strategy for improving your workplace culture? So more 50-50 on that, all right? And hopefully you get inspired around a framework that can help you in terms of your work culture. So thanks very much for sharing that poll, and thanks very much for getting involved. And look, as I said at the start, we're really delighted that Robert is the head of people and culture for Allianz, and has taken the time out to join us this morning. They've been on a really great journey in terms of building a great culture. There is no great place to work without organizations like Allianz and the great work that they do. So Robert, I'll pass over to you, and then I'll pop back in for questions then after. But Robert, thanks for joining us, and enjoy.
Well, thank you, Cathal, for inviting us. And hopefully, I said we'll try and make this as discussion based as possible. I suppose in terms of trying to put a few slides together for today, we really just kind of focused on where our starting point has been, and then I suppose a couple of areas specifically that we've tried to work on over the past couple of years. And I suppose anything that people can take for it, absolutely happy to do so. I suppose if we can just move on, we'll probably just contextualize for a few people who don't know us. We'll be very disappointed if you don't know Allianz as a brand, but it's something that, like every company, you have to continue to promote. And I suppose in that context, who are we? We're a global insurance company, which has, I suppose, as I say, operated in over 70 countries. And within Ireland, we've been here operating for over 100 years, which people may not fully realise. But in terms of a workplace, we're just over 720 employees at the moment in our general insurance business, serving over 700,000 customers in Ireland. And as a global brand, obviously, alongside Great Place to Work, we participate in a number of indexes, I suppose, to, again, underline, I suppose, some of our societal commitments, which, again, with Great Place to Work and their culture framework, obviously gives us an opportunity internally to keep an eye on. So I suppose in the next slide, we probably just try to give people a little bit of sense of where and how we came, I suppose, on to the Great Place to Work journey, and where we've gone. So I suppose starting back, probably in the early 2020s, but I think like most companies, having to look very, very clearly post-COVID, almost post-hybrid at that sense on what does it all mean? Where do we want to position ourselves? What has, I suppose, the past few years done to, I suppose, our way of working and obviously the knock-on impacts on culture, and where do we want to be and how do we want to position ourselves? So very clearly, I suppose we set the ambition that we wanted to be the best employer in our market. So our market is a little bit loose. I suppose we are a financial services company. So at a sectoral level, I suppose that's I suppose the type of employees that we have, the type of candidates that we're looking to attract, have that type of background, and obviously within that, I say our employer value proposition is something that we wanted to make sure stood out, and resonated with both who we wanted to attract in terms of potential employees, and then obviously for the colleagues that work with us, want to feel that they're benefiting from that experience as much as somebody coming in through the door as a new colleague. And when we went to do that, I'm sure probably some companies here have internal surveys. We would have internal surveys as well, but you can only, I suppose, look inside the organization for so long. You also need a way to validate and benchmark. Well, what does that look like against everyone else and our peers, and again the employment market more widely? So as said, in terms of looking at how we could do that, who we could partner with, obviously that's how we came into contact with Cathal and his team, and began our Great Place to Work journey. And I suppose again, that combination of being able to take the internal, I suppose, measure of how our employees were feeling, and what they were engaging with, and then look at that through, I say, not only the internal lens, looking at function to function, the consistency in the experience, but then also being able to compare it externally and see how does that compare both in practice and in overall measurement to where we were trying to get to. So the rest, I suppose, is fairly easy to see. We began our journey in I suppose late 2022, to be honest, and came through 2023 working with Great Place to Work, and to first of all get that certification step, to, I suppose, give ourselves I suppose the assurance that the I suppose basic building blocks were in place, and to ensure that I suppose there was some kind of baseline for ourselves. So we were very happy to achieve certification, and then obviously happier again to be listed. And I suppose we took forward a great deal of positivity that comes from that on to 2024, where again we would have looked at a number of different areas and said to ourselves, look, what can we do and what can we improve, and some of it we'll come to in a minute. It's not all I suppose new. A lot of the time it is looking at what you have already, what's working, playing to your strengths, which sometimes we forget to do, but then also I suppose adding new things along the way. And I suppose happily for us, a lot of those things our own colleagues would have seen and appreciated, and obviously our journey has continued to, I suppose, today, I suppose, to the culmination, and being able to talk to everyone here about what we've done, I suppose, what's worked for us. Obviously, not saying it will work for every situation and every context, but maybe there's things in there that are relevant. I suppose just before I do that, I'd probably explain a little bit more about our strategy. I say Cathal has mentioned it and polled on it just there in terms of a workplace strategy. So maybe in the next slide, we will probably just give our a nutshell of what drives us. And I suppose it was quite important for us to make sure that our overall kind of vision and purpose as a company and as a brand had, I suppose, its equivalent on the colleague side, where they could directly relate what we're trying to say to our customers and how that spoke to them. So you'll see at the top left, for us as an insurance brand, what I suppose our brand promise tries to be is very much around securing people's future, allowing them to take risks, to take opportunities, to do things with the assurance that, you know what, if the little things that go wrong along the way do happen, we as an insurer are your partner to, I suppose, mitigate that risk. On the employee side, we did spend a lot of time trying to translate, well, what does that mean if you're a colleague sitting in our claims teams or in our underwriting functions? And I suppose after a good bit of time, we came up with, I suppose, that equivalent of we care for tomorrow. And that's, I suppose, the internal promise to mirror the external brand promise. And I suppose once you say big statements like "we care for tomorrow" to your colleagues and your employees, then you immediately bring yourself into the culture space, and that's very much what we would see and agree very strongly a great place to work on. As I said, from a brand position, we do see our culture as, I suppose, the key. We've put it there. It's the key performance driver for our business, and very important that it's aligned not only with our business goals, but that we can also sustain it. And the whole point of securing the future is it's got to be a sustainable endeavor. You can't just decide one day you're going to do it, next day you won't, or you'll put in 80% one day, maybe 60% the next, 100 the following. No, you've got to be, I suppose, consistently committed to it. And when we kind of looked at our culture through that lens, and again for us on the colleague side, it was very much saying, okay, well, where and how do we show and demonstrate that that we are committed to the culture and to maintaining that in its broadest form, and what we would say obviously is our employee value proposition is the thing that we consistently come back to and say, you know, it's not, and Cathal will tell you this, it's not always just about money. It's not all just about benefits. It's not all about, you know, your manager and how they're engaging with you on a particular day. It's not always about ways of working or particular work practices. It's all of it together, and you have to look at it together and that broadly. And I'm not saying we're perfect by any manner of means. I'm saying that this is, I suppose, the lens that we've chosen to view it through. So if we move on and just say, obviously, looking at that and looking at it kind of the way strategically we we kind of broke down our brand promise in terms of, I suppose, key constituent parts. One of the things, and we put the magnifying glass particularly over brand and society, because I suppose as we looked at that part and said, okay, how do we appear as an employer brand, both to the people that are working with us, but also out to the market, and how can we, I suppose, again, give ourselves a good degree of assurance that we're doing the right things, and that these things, I suppose, again, not only just appealing to us, but also, I suppose, again, resonating and being consistent with our brand values externally. So even where, and look, we're all in this boat, we all have people who apply for roles with us. I'm sure not everyone gets the job. But at the same time, you want those people to have the same consistent experience and view of you as an employer brand and what you stand for. So looking through that particular set of objectives, very quickly came to the conclusion that Great Place to Work was the right partner to be able to work with. And look, we've listed a few of the reasons there on the right of why that's the case. But I suppose I'll underpin that by saying also has that track record and that presence and consistency over. Cathal, I won't age you, but Great Place to Work in Ireland, certainly probably nearly 30 years operating in Ireland, and has that kind of history and I suppose track record of being a very trusted brand. And again, we want to be a very trusted brand. Partnering with a very trusted brand in the space was definitely something that was important to us. So that's why we came to where we were, and I suppose how we came to partner with Great Place to Work. What does it all mean, and what did it all do in terms of our journey? I suppose onto the more practical, I suppose, things. We I suppose in the first year when we got our set of results through the survey, Cathal would have met with us. He would have been aware we were kind of happy, but we were, not entirely happy, and going, okay, we felt maybe there were areas that we thought we'd be doing better on than we were. So it became quite important at that stage to start digging into why that might be the case, and where and how we could make changes. And probably in that context, again, would come back to it's not just about the things that maybe you're getting feedback you could do better on. It also includes things that you're doing well, and people are showing that they appreciate. And then what can you do to, I suppose, build that up further and play to your strengths rather than always concentrating your weakness. So we picked a lot of different areas. I picked 5 this morning we might speak to. If we just move on one slide, those particular topics, and can go into these in a little bit more detail. Again, probably sure people looking at this right now will say, these resonate. These are quite broad areas, and they're quite, I suppose, in the space that many of us are looking at every day. I suppose the reasons why we looked at those areas and we did particular things in those areas, which, and this is just my opinion, I think contributed to, I suppose, an improvement in our overall feeling as a company about our culture, but also kind of resonated across all of our demographics of colleagues. We'll kind of speak to a little bit more at the moment. I'll go through each of these in turn if I have time, and share a little bit of why and what. And probably of all of the things, I'll really pick out the one last one there in terms of roles and managers in engaging, and I'll probably try and spend most time on that. So to begin, I suppose with onboarding, what and why? I guess for many people, it probably understand that onboarding experience for a new colleague is really kind of setting the tone culturally. And when we sat back and reflected on the results, what we really tried to hone in on was, okay, who is setting that tone? Who is giving the cultural steer to a new joiner in the first 30, 60, 90 days? We'll happily say to ourselves, look, it's line managers probably for the most part. It's just probably inputs from a couple of different units in terms of logistics and setups and this, that, and the other. But when we really sat back and said, well, the reality is it's the person that you work beside. It's your team. They're the ones who really do the cultural onboarding. And we said, look, we've got good results, not bad by any manner of means, but is it really what we want? Is what we're seeing through the feedback. If you look a little bit further into how people are feeling about career progression a year down the line, how they're feeling about recognition and equity in terms of promotions and career opportunities a year down the line, is there kind of a hidden undercurrent that we're not paying enough attention to through the first year of or so of a person joining us? So if you just move on to that topic, just move the slide forward one. No, back one. Sorry, that's it. Yeah. So what did we want? We wanted everyone to have a consistent experience. And I suppose probably working with Great Place to Work, one of the things it showed us was it wasn't consistent. Some areas it was great. Other areas it was, average. We know where it was very poor, but it could have been a lot better. And I suppose standing back from it, we said, well, is that good enough? And do we want to leave that to chance? So we, as it says there, we did a complete rebuild of our onboarding journey through 2024. Down to, when you see that's the opening slide, Fáilte, it's called the Fáilte program. And again, the reason for that is we are a multinational, multicultural, multilingual company. So we're likely to have joiners from all over the world, as much as someone coming from Ireland. But that said, we wanted to be very clear, you're coming to Allianz in Ireland, and a big part of our culture is intertwined with Irish culture. So what does that mean in its most positive way? So starting off with Fáilte, being very clear, we are Irish. It is an Irish workplace culture that you're going to join, but sitting in within that broader context. When we decided to rebuild, we tore everything down. We looked at all the constituent parts, what was bugging our employees, the IT setups. I'm not speaking to anything new here. You all know there's always those logistical issues, but really taking a forensic lens to what could we fix, what could we make easy, how could we make it a seamless experience, what could we do for employees between that recruitment journey up until, which people think might be a very positive experience, and then it's suddenly once you've left the recruiter's hands and joined the company, suddenly the experience might drop a level. How do we make sure that experience the person is having is maintained? So real focus on pre-boarding, all the things that we could do for them in advance of joining, all the things that they should know, like where's the closest bus stops, can I get a bus pass? Can I get, like, all of those little things that just makes it easier for people on their first day, couple of weeks. We moved from a 2-day induction to a 6-week orientation, where we've broken it up into far more digestible, bite-sized pieces, consistent with their experience of joining the organization. So yeah, like the first day, we completely changed. It wasn't about, here's all the compliance information you need to know, here's all the documents you need to sign and policies that you need to read, which, look, we all do. I've done in the past. It's part and parcel. It has to be done. But how can we rebuild the experience that it's more easy to digest? It makes more sense for the person, and because they've, I suppose, at a point in their orientation that they now begin to understand why some of these things are important, and they have the context built in after being. And I'll just take a simple example. We're a very risk-based culture. We're an insurance company, but understanding risk internally, you only understand a bit more once you've seen what systems you're working with, what kind of procedures are in place, what are the risks in your job. You don't know until you're 3 or 4 weeks in. And then suddenly, having your module on risk and why we want you to have this appreciation makes a lot more sense. So taking that lens to try and make it easier for people, and then trying to overlay that, as say, with culture at the core. So every single decision that we've made, being against that, well, what culture and cultural experience do we want them to have, rather than leaving it to chance of, I sit beside the wrong person on day one who might have had a bad day, mightn't want to talk to you, which has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with them as a person, just their experience on that day. But that's your first introduction to what is it like to work in this company, and try to mitigate as much of that experience as we could. So look, put up the score, the feedback rating we got this year versus last year, and I suppose to get to 95%. Again, a significant uptick from where we were the year before. And I'm not saying we were in a bad place. I think we were around 88% in the prior year. So we wouldn't have said doing badly, but getting to 95 again is, as I say, you sometimes you play to your strengths as much as anything else.
Robert,
yeah.
Robert, just a couple of questions came in just while they're live.
Sure.
It's on the onboarding piece. So Kira asks, how did you bring the Irish cultural aspect into the onboarding process? I see the Fáilte thing. Did you do anything else? Is there a module around what the weather is today, or the traffic is awful? How did you bring that Irish piece into it?
For us, and probably we're by the seaside, Cathal. You're probably aware, but for everyone else on the call, we're on the seaside. So looking out the window, everyone knows what the weather is almost immediately. But for us, I suppose what did it mean from an Irish perspective? I suppose I'll answer it in 2 ways, because we have colleagues who support us but don't physically sit with us. So for those colleagues, we would have very specifically designed the Irish cultural artifact, as you say. What is it like to live in Ireland? So again, some of that would have blended into, obviously, into the Fáilte program as is basis. But what kind of things did we bring in? We would have brought in very much what are, I suppose, basics. What are cultural holidays? What is it that Irish people celebrate? Why do they celebrate it? What's the history to some of the things that are popular in Ireland from a social perspective, from a sporting perspective. What is the regional, I suppose, Ross, the regional setup, which I could say is as a multinational. When you're there, does everyone understand, the difference between a county and a region? Do they understand that Connacht isn't in Galway, that Galway's in Connacht? If you're traveling over from Germany or from America, it's not obvious. But when people just start talking to you about it as if you should know, then you feel very quickly at sea. Some Irish words, the more popular ones, just to give them a feel for what I suppose the social discourse.
Yeah.
And for some employees, obviously we support further with specific language courses. English isn't always their first language, and an Irish version of English, and particularly shorthand Irish is something that you need to be read into, and all of those things we would support. I think the interesting thing, again, we're working on at the moment is obviously the use of AI and the AI in some of those kind of training interventions. So that would be interesting as a kind of a next evolution to that kind of training. For the people who are physically joining with us on day one, most of day one we devote to orientating them to the workplace itself. So I'll say pre-boarding, where are the bus stops? Where is the train station? Can I get parking? Where can I get parking? How much does it cost? How much in terms of our own systems can we make available to them, so that, like as a simple example, on day one, to make sure that we walk them to all the places that they'll need to go on a relatively regular basis. So where is their locker? Where is the restaurant? Where is the services team, our IT desk? Where are the things that they're likely to want to interact with? And know where they are and orient them that in a very, I suppose, low-key, relaxed way. And then most of the rest of that morning, we will just focus on culture and making sure people understand the connection between our strategy and our brand and our cultural piece. And that is day one. We don't cover other topics. One of the things we do present with them on day one is this is your learning pathway for your orientation. So that they're very clear and upfront. This is how long it's going to take. These are when these things are going to happen. If I certain things I have to do, I have to tick boxes, I have to take tests, when they're going to happen, how they're going to be supported through. They will get all of that information on day one and have it to hand.
That's great, Robert. And listen, I'm sorry for jumping in with the question. I'm conscious of the time. Want to make sure you get the time to share the story. But I suppose just one question in from Maura. Any changes in terms of your resourcing requirements, given you moved from a 2-day to a longer onboarding experience? Any changes around resourcing?
Less changing. Sorry, so I would say yes in terms of probably the effort of our team, and but not a lot. I'm sure they'll disagree with me. But I think what we tried to do was not make the orientation much longer. We tried to break it up a lot more. So where I suppose we would have drawn on resources from the business for different topics, it does absolutely require more logistics, arranging who's going to be where when, at what points in time, and we did have to ask for a level of commitment from the business that we supported again with a calendar. We made decisions around when we were going to have orientations, because we needed to be a lot more scheduled, and we needed to be a lot more consistent about delivery. So a lot of that upfront work went in to agree this is the calendar for the next 6 months. These are the dates you'll be required. This is the expectation, and what is the, again, an important thing, again, just that we would have done that we wouldn't have done before. We did the overall kind of, survey at the end. How was your onboarding journey? And by that stage, people, half the time just want to get out of the room and it's their jobs. We went from that to, we're not going to do that anymore. But after each module, we are going to survey you after each about, what worked, what didn't work. In that module, what are the bits that we can improve, and taking a far more I suppose forensic approach to each kind of delivery that we were doing, and what was it actually resonating, and where people finding it useful as an experience. So we have done a lot more of that.
Brilliant, Robert. Thanks for that. I won't jump in with any more questions. We'll go for about another 12 minutes, and then we'll leave time.
Sure.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, I'll speed up. I four to do, I think, but I said I'll probably focus on the last one most. If we move to the next one, recognition and equity. Again, this is the key call out for us. A true great place to work, and it was very much about recognition. Look, there'll always be, I suppose, call outs around reward and benefits and things that we could do differently, or things that people want. But very much the sentiment that was coming through, and Great Place to Work would have shared this. Look, this is very much more about the recognition element, and people feeling in that moment that their work is being recognized. And I suppose going back and looking at what we could do to address that. It's not the case. I'm sure all of you have recognition style programs in place. We did too, but it was very much trying to go back and say, okay, some things we're going to have to do at a very broad level, and some things are going to have to be very, very local and manager led. And I suppose we try to build programs and relaunch programs with very much kind of that focus in mind. So 2 examples we just put up here. One thing we did was, I suppose, our success stories, which was an existing program where we were trying to and do try to recognise colleagues who have, done particular work on a program or project, or have provided particularly good experience to clients and customers, and how do we find a way to recognise that effort. And like most things, it probably had gotten a little bit stale. We re-looked at it, we relaunched it, we've completely changed the format of how we communicated around it and communicate to people. But probably one of the more important things I think we did, we said, look, we were bringing them, trying in the workplace, we were having our awards, we were presenting our prizes, but were we making them feel they were really, really recognizing them? So one of the things we would have moved to do was creating our own special event for all the people that were nominated and successful in that recognition program, and bringing them somewhere that we wouldn't normally go to, something that was a special experience for them. So last year we would have brought them all to Teens Distillery, brought them on the tour, had a great night afterwards, somewhere that they don't normally get to go to, somewhere different for them, and to make them feel, wow, the organization has really gone out of its way to recognize what I contributed. All Stars, again, is another program which we just started last year on the back of this, and very much aimed at recognizing people in our customer facing areas, and the work that they were doing, and how they were supporting and engaging with our customers, and making sure, because a lot of them are in our younger cohort, in our shorter service, and their opportunities to be involved in bigger programs or projects may be limited, but they're still able to in their own role to have a very big impact on customers that they're dealing with day to day. So we developed a specific program to try and recognize their efforts. And then overpinning that at a company level, again, some of the brands we worked with, we partnered with deliberately to make sure, because equity was another thing that came out very much in the survey. So how do we show with our DEI strategy, with I suppose looking at equity specifically, what kind of things were resonating, how could we communicate better around I suppose these partnerships, the work we were doing in those areas, and bring people into it, and very importantly, because sometimes a brand, an award on a shelf, it's great. The people directly involved, inverted commas, have worked in it, and then it gathers some dust. What we really wanted to do was try and go the other way and saying, well, how can we bring as much of the organization into contact with these things as we possibly can, and where can we do it? Pick out the Menopause Hub as an example over the last year, where we had a great day on site with them. And it's not going to be every colleague who's going to turn up. They're going to show up, but they're still going to have that knowledge, that awareness. The people who do show up will have their reasons for turning up, but they'll go back to the rest of the organization and share that this is a really positive thing. So again, a lot of effort goes in. I'm not going to deny that. You do have to pick the ones that you feel will resonate and build best value for you, but definitely is something that resonates in the equity space, certainly. I'll keep moving quickly, but I'll come back to any questions if we've time at the end. Cathal, the next area is wellness. All I'll say really on this is we do a lot in the wellness space, and we're quite proud of the work that we do. We very much look at it through that employer value proposition lens, and a lot of effort does go into it. I suppose our big takeaway over the past year was, look, we need to communicate. It's not a case of talking to the guys that we were not doing anything wrong or had any particular gaps in that kind of offering, but we really need to get out and communicate a lot better about that offering, and because people forget. But let's be honest, to forget. There's so much noise, there's so much communication. It's very easy to lose sight of what you have available to you. And unfortunately, as I say, sometimes the only way you can do it is communicate even more. Alongside that, again, we operate a hybrid working policy. We're very committed to it. We went and took this step of doing a hybrid work review across our entire organization in the second half of last year for two things. One, a lot of the time people put it in place during COVID or just in advance of COVID, and that's nearly 5 years ago now. So going out to our teams and saying, look, we know it's not perfect, and we know there are things that can be changed and improved. Some of the colleagues have changed since the last time we went out and spoke to you about it. So what we found was people very appreciative of the opportunity to actually talk about it, and talk about it in a positive way rather than in a fearful way of, oh, is this the talk where you're going to tell me you're going to take something away from me? It was more the talk of going, what's working, what's not working, and doing it very much on a team by team basis, rather than a level of an organization has said we've made a pronouncement on this. It has been very much done the other way around, getting into rooms of people, because some things don't work, right? And people know themselves that they don't work, but we by giving them the opportunity to talk about it themselves, most of the time they'll arrive at the practical solution. And definitely, I suppose, as an approach that's worked for us, and something which I think, again, conversely, it actually gives our management a lot more confidence that hybrid is the way to go, because we're talking about practical work matters. We're not talking about the principle, and that's the better, I suppose, the better obviously has worked for us. I'm not saying it worked for everyone, but it's worked for us. I'll keep moving in the interest of time. I think the career and learning development opportunities was an area, again, like onboarding. We took a bit of time out and said, we're doing a lot of things in this space. Is it resonating with people? Are we doing too much almost at times? And I suppose one of the things that would have come out for us quite strongly was, we've lots of career opportunities. As I said, we're apart from the local opportunities for people to advance, we're part of a very large multinational group, and there are opportunities all over the world. So were people telling us they don't know that we have jobs or careers, that's not what they were telling us. They were telling us that they needed help understanding how they could influence and how they could move, without, I suppose, just waiting for the job board one day and deciding by flipping a switch whether I'm interested or not interested. So one of the bigger things that we undertook last year was effectively going back in team by team, identifying, I suppose, on a career level, what were the core roles that people saw as advancement in each area, and then trying to marry that up very clearly with, here are learning paths to support and skills initiatives, things like that, but effectively a learning path that can get you from the role that you're currently in to the role that you might have an interest in, or where you want to be in time. So we call it Allianz Maps. We took you very much the view of, it's like the subway system in London. There's plenty of different lines depending on which career path you're on, but a lot of them do cross over. There's intersecting points that you can move from one line to another, and we've tried to build all of our career paths out like that, and then in behind, give people a tool where they can assess their own skills as they currently are against the role that they want, and then develop a learning path that will help them to get it. It doesn't mean they'll always get the job, but it puts them in a far better position to be able to apply and feel confident that they actually understand how you can advance in our organization. So again, positive results. I think that was up about 6 or 8 on the previous year. So again, not saying we were doing terribly badly, but an area where we could capitalize on a strength. And as I said, we lots of learning programs, but giving them that extra kind of focus and helping people access it, I suppose, in the right way. I keep moving. The last one I said that I did want to just touch on was the role of our managers. When one of the things, and very clear things that we did, was sit back and say to ourselves two things. One, our management are colleagues too. They also need to feel engaged and part of the culture and experiencing the culture. Not the ones, as it can tend to be the way that, you're the manager, it's your job. You also have to recognize, no, managers are there to be engaged as well, and where they are engaged and very much bought in to the culture that you're trying to build, they're your biggest weapon, and the biggest mover, positively or negatively, in terms of the overall culture that you have in an organization. So we very clearly put them at the center over the last year. Put a lot more support in place to help them interpret the challenges in their own areas, firstly. But again, similarly to the previous point, you know, there's so much information trying to help managers assess what we have, what's the right offering for that for that right team or employee, and making sure that message and type of communication is getting out there. Look, just put in an example. What did we do in terms of communication overall? We really stepped up internal communication. We had read a lot into those sentiments around management. Are they honest? Are they ethical? Are they communicating in the right way? Are they communicating enough? And we made significant efforts to increase both the visibility, the access, and I just talk to people a lot more. To be honest, and you know, sometimes we assume because the email's gone out, the website article's gone out, the flyer has gone out, all those things that we're all doing. But sometimes, again, like everything else, the message is not getting through because there's so many other competing messages. So creating those spaces, and what do I mean? We've held town-wide or company-wide town halls. We've held specific sessions on our strategy and different components of our strategy. We've done deep dives. We've done coffee mornings. We've done your sit by Nelly, sit with someone for half a day as an executive manager in a team to experience what their day's like. We've done a lot more in that space to try and just connect. I suppose connect people at the end of the day. I'd say managers are, as I said, starting off back at the beginning, managers are people, they need to be engaged. You know, most of the time it isn't the governance, it isn't the policies and procedures we ask them to do and carry out that gives them any joy, but actually being able to sit in rooms and talk to people about what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it, and why our company is the right place to do it in. That's a lot more enjoyable for them. It's a lot more enjoyable for the people listening to them, and again, I suppose trying to do a lot of work in that space just gives people a different feeling about the experience. We found. Happy to say, as a financial services company, management is honest and ethical in its business practices. You know, we'd like it to be 100%. We'll take 95, and always more to do. But certainly, that engagement of our managers, and when I say that, simple things like putting all the key things that your manager needs to know and communicate on a page once a month for them. So that they don't have to dig through the 20 or 30 different emails from different functions or different areas about, you know, what does information security need to do this week? What does a compliance team need to do? What does HR want you to do from a learning perspective? Putting all of that in one place, that a manager can just take it and then go to their team and communicate it. Simple things like that through to, as I say, the more hands-on support. Anyway.
Robert,
I'll stop talking. Sorry, Carl.
No, not at all. You've been really, and there's lots of, you know, lots of well done's coming in, Robert, and people are appreciating the story. You've been really clear on those areas of focus, right? Just take a couple of minutes and just what we'll say, Robert, if it's okay for you, Robert, we might stay on for 5 minutes more just to work through some of the questions that came in. Billy, I know you raised your hand, right? But pop the question into the Q&A, and we'll gladly take the question there. So working through some of the questions there, Robert, that we got in. Jamie is interested in terms of how did you position it so it's not seen as a HR program, a HR initiative. How do you think about that, Robert?
How do we think about it? The honest, so how do I think about it? I'm thinking about how I think about it because I suppose the reality is it has to start at the top, and there had to be a very, I suppose, clear engagement with CEO on down that this is something we wanted to make a serious investment in. So what I mean by that, and to demonstrate it, probably like many companies here, you have your own versions of scorecards, strategy scorecards, or otherwise. And we very clearly put this into our strategy scorecard. We were going to measure it. We had a clear, I suppose, ambition that was set around it, that was at the same level as all of our other strategic ambitions. And it would have started there. After that, as I said, yeah, a supportive management team is very important. But I suppose, again, having, I suppose, top leadership who will do the basic things, like just say the things that need to be said. And look, one example very clearly, our CEO would have gone out very early in this process and said to everyone, look, whatever the feedback is, sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it'll be bad, but whatever the feedback is, the only number that I'll be looking at first at the end of, if it's a survey cycle or feedback, the only number I'm going to look at is the participation rate. Because we cannot say to ourselves that we have an engaged workforce if they're not willing to take 5-10 minutes out of their day to give us feedback. And very clear message to everybody. Okay, and a little bit of putting it up to them, in one hand, but equally saying to all of our managers and every layer to the organization that, you know what, the first part of engaging with your culture is actually being a contributor. These people who are silent, the ones that want to sit in a restaurant or by the water cooler. I'm sure if anyone does that anymore, but wants to have opinions by the water cooler, but don't want to take the time to actually contribute in a meaningful way. We're not standing for that anymore. And people responded to the, I said, I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, but people responded and they said, okay, you're taking it seriously.
And you got detailed comments and suggestions through the program as well, Robert, and a lovely tone, I would say, that people left at the end of the survey in terms of the improvement areas that they were looking for. Anne is wondering, is birthday leave a day off? Is it a paid day off, birthday leave?
It is, yeah.
Okay, very good.
It is, and if you just, if I can expand on that for a second, because it's very important to say, like, we are a unionized environment. We have trade union Unite, which represents our colleagues. But and I would say to say that Unite itself, if you can have a positive relationship with trade union partners, we would have very early on brought them into the conversation about employer value proposition rather than just about paying conditions. And what I mean to say is through that, as part of your normal paying conditions, and we all have to do the IR processes year on year, but being able to be more expansive about a proposition and what provides value to colleagues, rather than let's get into a war over a pay pot. Can we be a bit more expansive about that and think about what would work for people? They got on board and have been good partners along the way. So things like birthday leave, we've introduced because it does resonate. It does, I suppose, recognise that bit more. But it's also something that we say, look, we didn't have to put a huge amount of additional expense into achieving. We could work with union partners in saying, well, let's just look at what value proposition means, rather than the base pay figure all the time, and they were responsive.
The total offering, Kathy, I hope this answers your piece around the pay increase and the trips piece. Like, it's really a total offering that they think about, and a culture, a total offering from a culture, from a leadership point of view, from an Allianz point of view. It's not just one thing or the other. And was just wondering, in terms of very interesting, the recognition awards that you're doing, how you've updated them. Back of house is the language that Anna's used, which is sort of hotel language. But I suppose, how do you think about maybe all functions when you think about that recognition and who you recognize, Robert?
Yeah, and dead right. And, not without a challenge. And one thing, I suppose we've taken two approaches. One is, I say, on the equity side, in terms of recognition, what can we make accessible to everybody? Regardless of where you work within the organization, and your status, what can we make accessible to everybody? So again, very practical example of that, our car parking. Pre-COVID, we had the usual thing, I'm sure many people did, assigned parking. If you had it as part of a T's and C's, stuff like that, you got it, you didn't. If you had, and a lot of inequity. One of the things that we would have done in conjunction with hybrid working was make that available to everybody, and become a far more accessible benefit. We had to work with people to do it. We had to make them see the trade-off of the positive of a hybrid working environment versus, it needs to work for everybody. And one of the things, if you have to come in on a day while someone else can work remotely, well, it's only fair that they've somewhere to park in the same way that you might. And most people did just see the practical logic and pragmatism, and again, being able to offer that equal access makes everybody feel they're being treated the same. On the recognition point specifically, we've done a couple of things. One thing, as I said, we have programs like All Stars that are across the organization. All managers can nominate. Within, I suppose, those events that we hold for people in that, we have the things that we take in through submissions, but we also have a cohort of places that are specifically for managers of each area to nominate someone, or two or three people that they want to recognize specifically. So it's not just one route. People can have recognition through a number of different routes. On top of that, we did make the decision, and it costs money, I'm not denying it, but we did make a decision last year to give each of our managers a certain budget to spend locally on their teams. But we had attached two conditions. One, it had to be team-based. It can't just be pick one out over the other. It had to be something you were doing as a team for team building, for cultural reasons. But at the same time, it's your money. We're not going to look, obviously, we will for revenue purposes, but apart from that, we won't look over your shoulder and say, oh no, you can only spend it this way. If you have something that your team wants to do, if it works for them, if it's something that they'll value, then fair enough, have at it. That's there, and that was a very conscious decision we had to make. And then, and I'd say had to make because we had to fund it. It didn't take away. We had the stuff that we wanted to do as a company to make sure everybody as a company still comes together and still has that feeling that different people in different part of the organizations, people that haven't seen each other because of hybrid for 6 months, still have a place they can get together and reconnect. So we had to fund that separate.
Robert, there's lots of thank yous coming in. All right, I'm gonna share a few stats that I think are important, right, just to ground the story that you shared there, Robert, right? So if you think of the survey as the heart of understanding where we're at, and then we make improvements like Robert has shared, and then what has happened to the survey results. People here are paid fairly for the work they do, plus 13% year on year. I would strongly endorse my organization to friends and family as a great place to work. Robert, your stats are up plus 10% year on year. 88% of people that work with Allianz have said they'll strongly endorse the organisation to friends and family as a great place to work. 93% of people believe in it's a great place to work. People, promotions go to those who best deserve them, plus 9%. So not only, Robert, you're kind of listening as a leadership team, you're following up, you're focusing on the things you can do, but you're getting the results in terms of the trust and engagement. Robert, congratulations on the story that you have played a role in as part of, played a key role in. It's a great journey that you've been on in Allianz, and it's really great to know that you're still focused on making further improvements. You've been really honest in sharing today. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, Robert.
Happy to.
Thanks, folks. Good to see you.